Hey everyone, it's Phil Wade. How are you tonight? We're just about ready to get started. If you could type in and say hello, let me know who's here. Let me know if you're able to hear me, see me. That would be great. Hey Bill, how are you? Good to see you. Thank you for being here. Kevin, bueno, man. Good to see you. How's the audio? Everybody able to hear me all right? Hey Patricia, good to see you. Thank you for being here. Hey, Michael. All right, we'll give it another, 30 seconds, 1 minute. Hey, John, thank you for being here. Jael, always a pleasure. Thank you so much. See if anybody else pops on. Hello, Dean. How you doing? All right, so tonight we're going to be talking about, hey, Teresa, good to see you. Tonight we're going to be talking about, prospecting, expired, withdrawn, and for sale by owner listings. This is really the most important thing anyone can do as a real estate agent. And it's something every agent, needs to become proficient at. Hey, Brian, good to see you. Thank you for being here. So let me, I'll flip the slide and we'll get right into it. All right, so just to kind of give everybody a little bit of terminology, you may or may not know this. A withdrawn listing is when the seller, has asked the listing agent to withdraw the listing, or possibly the agent wants it withdrawn for whatever reason prior to the contract being up. So the contract ends in December, but they're withdrawing it now, so it goes into withdrawn status. There's two types of withdrawn status. One is called conditional withdrawal, meaning it's withdrawn conditionally. And if that property, hey Naomi, how are you? Nicholas, good to see you. If just getting going, if that property sells, potentially the old brokerage is hey Kristen, well I can't hear, so refreshing your browser usually works. So anybody else with any audio problems? Hey, Floor, how are you? We're just getting started. So we're talking about, withdrawn, expired, and for sale by owners. We're just going through the terminology. So withdrawn listing. Hey, Stephanie. Hey, Karen. How you guys doing? Good to see you. So we're just getting going on kind of the terminology. So the terminology, withdrawn listing, seller or agent wants it off before the expiration date. There's two types of withdrawn listings. Conditional means the broker is still owed money if that listing sells, because technically they're still under contract. So you don't want to be prospecting withdrawn conditional listings, right? Because they're really not, completely fair game. Unconditional, so it'll have a little U next to it. There's nothing due the previous, withdrawn unconditionally, all good to prospect that. Expired listing, certainly you can prospect that. There's no more relationship. And then obviously for sale by owner, that particular individual is trying to sell their home on their own. So that's just a little background. All right, so let's talk a little bit about why prospecting is so important, so critical. The first thing here is human capital versus financial capital. Hey Donna, how are you? Does anybody know what your human capital is? What is your human capital? Anybody know what that term means? Human capital. Talent, yep. Not quite. Hey Damien, your human capital is your, let's see if anybody else types it in, blood, sweat, and tears. There you go, Brian. Your human capital is your blood, sweat, and tears. It's your time. Thank you, Keisha. That your time is valuable. Your time is worth something. Hey, Ken, thank you for being here. And then your financial capital is your money, right? So your human capital is your time. So, as a real estate agent, what do? Right? We go on showings. We go on listing appointments. We go to home inspections. We go on home inspections and we go to closings. That tends to be, the work out in the field, right? And that does obviously take some time, but it's not all our time. The rest of the time we're prospecting. Prospecting can be prospecting internet leads, social media, your sphere of influence, but, prospecting, withdrawn, expired, and FSBOs, right? So you're going to spend, I like to say an hour a day, every day. Like that is slotted in whatever time it is, 6 to 7, 11 to 12, on your calendar. That hour is devoted every day to making those calls. I was recruiting an agent yesterday, and he started telling me like what he does, but he goes, I've gotten busy and I haven't done any prospecting for 2 months. So it kind of spurred me on to have this training, right? So he hadn't done anything in 2 months because he wasn't organized. He didn't have his schedule set up so that 1 hour a day, like you're not taking, like that's not when the home inspection is. That's not when you're going out with your client, right? I mean, obviously the closing gets scheduled. You might have to go, but you've got that hour slotted in every day. Hey, Ernesto, how you doing? You've got that hour slotted in to make those calls, right? Day in, day out. I mean, that's, he fell into that trap. It's the calling, prospecting, it's the number one thing as an agent you have to do if you want to build your business, right? Because so much happens off of listings. A lot of times, we work with buyers. I mean, Dalton Wade, we're heavier on the buyer agency side, right? We probably right now have under agreement, 250 properties, 170 of them are listings. Our buyer agent, and the other 80 are, listings. So it's heavier on the buyer agent. Again, it's fine. I mean, you can make money. There's commissions to be had there, but it's not as good. It's not as profitable. It's harder. It's more work. You can't go on vacation. If you're a buyer's agent, you go on vacation, your business stops. You're a listing agent and you're on vacation, you can still, have that transaction go under agreement because the buyer agent was there to do it for you, right? So listings, they're the better side of the business. Plus, you get to meet buyers, for free, right? So, if you're a Dalton, we have a nice mix of Dalton Wade agents and agents from other brokerages. Sorry, my phone is ringing. Shut that off. Sorry about that. Many of you know Claren, who's my marketing person. I met her over 4 years ago at an open house. She was buying a house. She became a Dalton Wade agent, but I had that listing to meet her. That particular listing was a great listing. I cold called that guy, right? He was a flipper. Talk a little bit more about sometimes what you got to do, but it was the perfect listing because it looked great online. And it was in a nice neighborhood, but when you got there, the property itself was, there was some real flaws to it, and it was overpriced. But online, it didn't look overpriced, and so there was a steady flow. We were doing an open house every weekend. There was a steady flow of people coming, and we ended up picking up 4 or 5, buyers off of that listing, right? So your human capital is your time. You got to devote that time in a very systematic, structured way. A lot of folks call it cold calling. I call it warm calling, right? Cold calling is, someone told me that they got called, hopefully there's any agents here from Keller Williams, that's all right. But, the Keller Williams agent, he was calling the phone book. That's cold calling. I don't know how productive that could be for anybody, right? For sale by owner, expired withdrawns, they've raised their hand and said, hey, I'm either selling now as a for sale by owner, or I've tried selling and I'm probably going to try again, right? People often ask me, like, what do you think of door knocking? Personally, I'm not a fan of door knocking, right? Because it still takes time. And here's the thing, when you go knock on somebody's door, they may not be selling their house for 10 years. They may have no intentions of it. I had one agent one time explain to me, like, why door knocking? And what she said was, oh, I got to meet the person, and maybe in 2 or 3 years, they'll give me the listing. I'm not worried about 2 or 3 years. I'm worried about December. I'm worried how my business is going to be in December, right? I'm all about now, because I may go out of business in 2 years. That's not going to happen. But that's the concept, right? You want business now, right? And that's what calling for sale by owners, withdrawn, and expires is. It's people that have said, hey, I'm raising my hand, right? I've tried to sell, or I'm thinking of selling. That's why it's not a cold call. It's a warm call. And again, this last bullet, it's really the most important thing you can do. It's one of the most important things, if not the most important thing, to get good at as an agent. But it's the thing agents hate to do. They don't do it. Just like that guy, gone 2 months without making any calls. He was kind of embarrassed. Probably doesn't like to call. We tend not to do things we don't like to do, right? So he stopped doing it. If anybody has any questions as we go along, just type them in. All right. So again, let's talk a little bit more about expired and withdrawn listings. We have scripts. We're happy to share those. Does anyone know, this first bullet, why a home might not sell? There's just really 2 reasons. What are they? Price. Thank you. Overpriced. Well, those are the easy ones, right? Price and marketing. There it is. Thank you. Cluttered. Cluttered is of pictures and marketing, right? It's potentially, it's the price. It's hard to sell overpriced. It's hard to sell overpriced listings, right? But sometimes the listing won't be overpriced, but that previous agent, their marketing wasn't so good, right? We've all seen them, and they're out there. Not just a few, but many. Poor photography. The photography is the number one thing you got to get right. How that listing is put together. The listing is a digital marketing piece, right? Think about how you do it when you're searching, for one of your buyers. I know how I do it. I look at a few photos, and if it doesn't grab my eye, I'm on to the next listing, right? So you want to catch people's attention so that they set up an appointment. And that's what you're going to tell that potential person who had their listing withdrawn or expired on them. Like, you're going to have the benefit of looking at the listing, right? If it looks great and it's been put together very well, then maybe it's the price, right? And still, sometimes you might be able to get the person to come down, but oftentimes it's poor marketing, by that previous agent, and you're gonna communicate that to them quickly. They had a problem. The problem was their listing didn't sell. You're going to tell them you're fixing their problem, right? Meaning you're going to make the photography better. You're going to mention, right? That's, in the script, right? The remarks, what sells homes are kitchens. I often see listings, 5 or 6 exterior photos. Just the kitchens are at the end. People key in at that nice kitchen. That's what brings them in. Again, how you put that listing together, right? Dictates who comes. And again, your first goal is always to sell the home, right? You have that responsibility to your seller. But sometimes you meet buyers, right? And you meet them for free. And it's perfectly fine after they're not purchasing that house, to solicit their business, to try to bond with them, to try to meet them. You do that through, direct showings, which are calls off your sign, calls off your internet. I had, a 25% conversion rate. When somebody called me off my listing, right? And I showed them the house, not an open house. I'm in there one-on-one. 1 out of 4, I would turn into a buyer client for me, because I would actively, as soon as I knew they weren't buying the house, I would actively solicit their business and ask them, it would kind of go like this, why'd you call the listing agent? The listing agent doesn't care if you overpay. I'll make sure you never overpay. I really know the market. I know what, houses cost here. I've got a great network of lenders, inspectors, title companies. Would you like to go out and see some homes? And 1 out of 4 would say yes. I mean, there is no internet lead, out there that gives you 25% conversion, not even close, right? And again, you're thinking about, you have that listing, and when that person calls, you're looking to, potentially, as soon as they're not going to buy that house, you're pitching you, you're selling you, right? Hey, Tara, how you doing? Same with open houses. They don't convert at nearly a higher rate, but they still convert at a higher rate than internet leads. Why? Because the people going to open houses are ready to buy now. Internet leads, sometimes they're ready to buy now. Sometimes they're ready to buy in a year, right? Sometimes they never buy. So again, listings can generate just great buyer leads for you. But again, when you're talking to that potential client, you got to convince them that you're going to fix their problem, right? You're going to do more, than their previous agent, right? You're going to do a set schedule of open houses. Oftentimes you might ask them, did your previous agent do any open houses? Sometimes they'll say maybe they did one, maybe they didn't believe in open houses. Why they don't believe in them? Because they're lazy, because they're a lazy agent. Open houses, to me, they're one of the most fun things we get to do. You get to meet people, and it's a great way to drive your business. Same with social media. You're going to promote that listing on social media. You're going to do more. You're going to fix the listing, right? So you've got to convince that seller, right? I mean, you just can't call them up and say, hey, I saw your listing expired. Can I come over? No. It expired or it got withdrawn for a reason. The other agent didn't get it done. You need to tell them how you're going to get it done. You got to come up, even though we have scripts, these are personal calls. These are, things you have to get good at. What I said and how I worked it may not be, what you guys do. Maybe close, maybe different. It doesn't matter. What matters is you make the calls, right? You're continually tweaking your messaging to increase your conversion rate. This is the battlefield right here. Again, it's something, your top agents, your top listing agents, this is what they do. Among other things, if they've been an agent for a while, they start to get referrals. But any newer agents, and even agents have been at it a while, continue to call, continue to prospect. All right, let's talk about FSBOs, right? So FSBOs, so there's different ways FSBOs can market their property. And it's important for you to find out, what are they doing? How are they marketing their property, so you can help them. Plus, okay, how hard is this? Meaning to get that listing. So the basic thing is somebody puts one of those red and white signs out in front of their house, for sale by owner. Probably not getting a lot of traffic. The way to get the most, and this is something to tell that for sale by owner, the way to get the most traffic is to have the most exposure and to have the listing look as strong from a marketing perspective as possible. So next is yard sign plus Craigslist. People still use Craigslist. There's still a lot of for sale by owners, on Craigslist. Yard sign, Craigslist, and then Zillow, right? A lot of times, people for sale by owners, there's a set schedule, sort on Zillow for sale by owner, right? Maybe they're reaching 30% of the potential buyers. That one buyer who will either buy it or pay them more doesn't use Zillow, isn't on Zillow. The next is yard sign, Craigslist, Zillow, and then MLS, meaning, they used one of those limited services, $99, $150 to post their listing on, the MLS. So now, then they say, well, why do I need you, right? But you need to find out, What have they done so that you can then talk to them intelligently about how you're going to help them? So again, where does the for sale by owner fall down? They tend to fall down on the photography. They tend to fall down on the remarks, right? They're not doing, open houses. They don't have social media, things that you're going to do. Their listing just isn't as well done. Plus, they don't have, all the sort of knowledge that you have as a real estate agent. Oftentimes the buyers want, some type of discount when they deal with, a for sale by owner. But you got to be able to, if they're on the MLS, you got to look at their listing. And again, you got to be able to tell them how you can improve it. So for sale by owners, they're very sensitive to the commission. That's why they're selling it themselves. Their brains work like this. I'm going to sell the house for the same amount of money as the real estate agent. Why do I want to pay them 3%? If my house is $300,000, why do I want to pay $9,000? Well, in actuality, they usually don't sell their house for as much as a real estate agent would. Sometimes it takes a lot longer. Sometimes they never get the house sold, but they don't think like that, right? Consider reducing your commission when it comes to FSBOs. It's music to their ears. They key off of that, right? Maybe you do it for 1% or 1.5% on the listing side, and you offer 2.5% to the buyer's agent. So it's 3.5 or 4%. But here's the strategy, right? Here's the strategy. From that listing, you got buyers for free. Even though you charged less, you met buyers. You got that listing to get buyer business. So think of it like this. Instead of paying Zillow or OpCity or Realtor.com or some other source that's going to give you buyer leads, no, you paid your seller, right, in the form of a reduced commission. And I guarantee you, what comes out of that listing is higher quality leads, because the people there are out actually looking and you're meeting them. Any questions on that? Anybody's tried that strategy? All right. So, it is effective. Well, you got to try it out. I can tell you from my main business, when I was an actual agent, was get listings, meet buyers. And basically I targeted for sale by owners. It was, and I did it with, that reduced commission. Many of you, Costa, how you doing? It definitely takes more than one trip. It takes more than one call, but again, that first call is like a warm call. The second call is a follow-up call. Hey, Karen. Yeah, it's the withdrawn ones that say withdrawn unconditionally. That means there's no ongoing relationship with any broker. When it says withdrawn conditionally, hey Eli, good to see you, man. When it says withdrawn conditionally, that means the broker, the original broker, they're still under contract with them. That contract has not ended. So potentially, if you sold it, yes, it is, Bill. The reduced commission is ultimately up to your broker. And if you're at a broker that doesn't let you reduce your commission, you may think about finding a new broker. There's folks out there in this business, meaning brokerages, that they're nervous, so they basically, you know, hold the line. You can't charge less than this. Thank you, Karen. But again, it's you know, the at least in my opinion, it's not about, you know, it's all about making money, right? It's not about what the commission is. It's about the opportunity, you know, to make money. I know some of you guys have heard the story, but I'm going to tell it again. My first listing in Florida, I charged, it was $895,000. I cold called the lady. She had her listing up. She paid $99, you know, to be on the MLS. I called her up. I said, hey, Phil Wade, Dalton Wade Real Estate Group. She goes, I know what you want. You want to charge me 6%, keep 4%. I'll never forget this phone call. Give 2%, and I'm having none of it. And I said to her, and I was like, thinking off my, you know, I'm like, oh, no, that's not what I was thinking, because I saw she was already offering 3%, you know, for the buyer's agent. So I knew some FSBOs will pay no commission, none. They will not pay a buyer's agent. They will pay nothing. They hate real estate agents. Those people, you know, you could tell them you're going to clean their bathroom, you're going to mow their lawn, you're going to change their kid's diaper, and they still will not give you the listing because somewhere, you know, they either had a bad experience or, you know, they are so cheap that they're stupid is really what it comes down to. At the end of the day, they don't, you know, just another, and I'll finish the story I was about to tell, but I'll give you another quick one. And again, this is how the business works. Like I had gotten a listing. I charged the guy 1%, right? It was a $350,000 condo. We gave 2% to the buyer's agent. I sold it. Then I got a referral. It was like a, I don't know, 12 or 14 unit complex, right? Townhouses side by side, but they were condos. So then I got, you know, the neighbor's listing, right? And I did them for 1%, and I sold theirs, and they were trading up from like the 350 range to like 500 to 600. So then I became their buyer's agent. So we're looking around, and, you know, we've probably gone out, I don't know, his name was Lenny, great guy. You know, we probably went out, I don't know, 4 or 5 times. We couldn't find anything, you know, but we had been all over like 3 towns, and we knew all the inventory. We knew and then he said, hey, I saw something pop up on Zillow for sale by owner. Can we go take a look? I'm like, sure. So we go, I set up the appointment. The guy says, yep, he'll pay me the 2.5%. And we go, and then we're in there, and we're like looking at each other like, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. He's underpriced his house by $50,000. Full price offer, you know, it was $525. I you know, got 2.5% of that. Now, was he a smart for sale by owner? Absolutely not. He's stupid. He lost, I think, over 30 grand because he didn't know what he was doing. Typically, for sale by owners, overprice their home is usually what happens, but not all the time, right? He didn't use a realtor. He thought he knew. The market was moving. The market was changing. This is like 2013, you know, when things were starting to really come back. But again, to that first listing I got in Florida, you know, I said to her, look, you know, I'll charge you, it was $895,000. I'll charge you 0.5%. We'll give 2.5% to the buyer's agent. I'll professionally photograph your home, open houses, social media. I'll fix your listing. Literally, after her like ready to slam the phone down on me, she says, when you coming over? I got the listing. What happened? So it took me 10 months to sell it. It was a very nice property right on the beach. Yeah, I made, I think, I don't know, sold for $850. I think I made, you know, $4,500. But I got one buyer out of it that I met. Like, they called me off this weird called point-to-click website. I showed them the house. They didn't like it. We hit it off. I became their buyer's agent. I sold them a $915,000 property with a 3% buyer's commission. I also got one referral. I made, I think, 12 grand on that from the couple, you know, that for sale by. I made like $45,000. So it's not about what you charge. It's about what you make and the opportunities that gives you. You know, when you have no listings, you know, when you work with buyers, I call it you're in the shadows. Nobody knows. Only you and the buyer know. You can't go on vacation, right? But when you have a listing, you have a sign. People contact you. You seem like the big person on campus. It's fine. It's great to do open houses. You can do other agents' open houses, but it's not the same. Your name isn't on the sign, right? But when you're the listing agent, you're doing that open house. What I found, for whatever reason, you have like more status. You just seem like a better, more put together agent. So again, at Dalton Wade, you can charge whatever you like. If you can charge 7%, awesome. You can charge 1%. You have to have your strategy of how you're going to get business. It's a very competitive business out there, but listings, so many good things happen, from your listings, but it all goes back to making the calls. That's what I find is a lot of agents, like the guy I talked to yesterday, he stopped making the calls, and he was telling me that his business was now slowing down. Yeah, because you stop marketing. So here's your plan of attack, right? You're going to spend 1 hour a day, every day, making those calls. You're going to try to do 10 calls a day. FSBOs, expired, and withdrawns, right? 10 calls a day. There's 20 business days a month. That's 200 calls. Costas mentioned, sometimes you have to call, more than once, right? You don't have to get the appointment on the first call. You can keep checking in. They appreciate that because it shows you're tenacious. They like that. Wow, look how many times, he's called me, if he gets a potential buyer, he's going to be that's kind of the message you're sending him, right? So you're hoping to get 1 to 2 appointments per 100 calls. That's 2 listings a month. Hopefully you get, 75% conversion rate on your appointments, right? So 2 listings a month is 1%, of 200. So you don't need a really high conversion rate. But if you don't call, you won't get any listings. So here are some other resources, right? There's the RedX. We are just buying a subscription to the RedX right now as the broker, and we're going to be distributing, probably starting in the next 1 to 2 weeks, the actual for sale by owner, expired, and withdrawn information to our agents, cross-referenced against the do not call list. There's also Espresso Agent, right? Again, these companies, Shayna, there really is no best time. I mean, you can call 10 to 11, 6 to 7. You got to kind of find that out. I typically call during the day, I did a lot, like in that 11 to 12 slot, it seemed to work. I would seem to get in touch with people. The statistics are, at least from the RedX, is that, of the information they send you, about 68% of the numbers are actually accurate. So, again, it's the volume of calls, right? There's 2 things in this, right? How many people you call and how good are you at calling, right? Like, I did another training similar to this a while ago. The guy said he was struggling, in terms of, he was calling, but he wasn't getting anywhere. Well, obviously, what your message is, you got to have high energy, right? You got to really seem like, you're going to do a great job for these people. You got to convince them, hey, talk to me, let me meet you. You're trying to get that appointment, right? And then from that appointment, our next training is going to be on the listing appointment, right? So you got to get the listing appointment, and then you got to do a killer job at the appointment, right? So that you win the listing. That's what it's all about, right? Some listings, when you go on the appointments, they're competitive, meaning they're talking to multiple agents. So you always want to put your best foot forward. Sometimes you're the only one. And then YouTube. YouTube is really an awesome source. I mean, if you type in, real estate agent expired listings, real estate agents for sale by owner, real estate agent withdrawn listing, right? I mean, 50 videos will pop up with agents telling you what they do. I'm just one person, right, that did some calling. I know what worked for me. What worked for me was call FSBOs and offer them a reduced rate. That's what I did, and that seemed to work for me. And, I mean, there would be times when I would have, 10 to 15 listings. Because what happens with FSBOs, and it's a little harder now because everything's selling. It's easier for the FSBO to sell the house, right? But if, when you drive around, how many for sale by owner signs do you see? Some, but you definitely see more real estate agent signs by far. Probably 20 to 1. Why? Because selling a house is a lot of work, as we all know. So a lot of FSBOs give it up because they don't really get how much is involved, meaning the work, and they don't know what they're doing. I guarantee you, I mean, it's I call it they're wet behind the ears. They really just don't know. But they're stubborn because of the commission. So you got to break that down by offering them some type of value, some type of deal, something less. Like that client I mentioned, that first listing I got here in Florida, I asked her afterwards, her property had been on the market like 160 days. And the reason why she was so short was because she was bombarded by people calling her. But everybody wanted 5 or 6%, and she wasn't going to do it. So you got to find some for sale by owners will, right? So you might try to feel them out a little bit, but most of them, they're selling it themselves because of what's really important. It's not the commission. What's important is what they get at closing, right? A good agent almost pays for themselves, if not more. But there's some other good resources out there if you're gonna sort of dive into this, right, and do the calls. You want to be as knowledgeable as possible, and you want to and again, it's something that evolves, meaning your pitch, right? What works, what resonates with people, how do they seem to like it? I mean, for me, it was that lesser commission and almost kind of full service. And then, basically I was, and again, if the house is 150,000, no, I'm not charging 1%. You can't do that, but the higher the price, the more, you potentially can possibly, reduce your commission. But again, I'm good with that as the broker here at Dalton Wade. But if you're not a Dalton Wade agent, you got to make sure, the brokerage, because some brokerages, that's like heresy, lunacy. So it depends where you are. So any questions before we wrap it up? I'm happy to send anybody the scripts that have interest. Just email me, phil@daltonwadecom.com, and I'll send them over. So you want to get into the routine. Here's your day. Your day is an hour calling. For sale by owners, an hour working internet leads, an hour working, social media, right? You're organized. If you're part-time, then maybe you do it, every other day, right? I mean, so that's kind of, but you're dialed in, you're dialed down, you're organized. Thank you, Shayna. Thank you, Kenneth. Hey, Alex, how are you? I'll send them over. Sounds good. Thank you. Or if you guys just want to type it in here, I'll make a note and, email those along. All right, Patricia, thank you so much. Thank you, Brian. Sounds good, Eli. I'll get those over for you. Thank you for being here. Yeah, when you registered, I have your email. I'll just email everybody that's on the call, and you'll all have them. Awesome. All right, guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you, John. I appreciate it. Make some calls. Get organized. All right, Nick. Thank you, Nadia. Thank you so much. All right, guys. Sounds good, Christian. Thank you. All right, Monica. Have a great evening. Look for those in the morning. All right, Bill. Thank you. All right, we'll hang out for one more minute, see if anybody has any last questions. Looks like Damien is typing something. Maybe all done. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Have a great evening. Yeah, Ernesto, it's coming. We just ordered it. We're still getting the data and kind of massaging it, but it should be coming out. Claren is kind of heading that up, so we should get that out for you. Thank you, Ernesto. Have a great evening, guys. Good night.